to begin, and we'll certainly recognize him when he arrives. A little over 2 weeks ago, the Alito Supreme Court issued its decision in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. The majority overturned nearly 5 decades of precedent, holding that the United States Constitution does not protect a woman's right to an abortion, reversing both Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey. This case represents the first time in America's history that the Supreme Court has revoked a constitutionally protected right. The first time. As a result, a woman's personal decision to make her own reproductive health care choices is no longer protected or guaranteed by the Constitution. In the words of Justices Kagan, Sotomayor, and Breyer, the conservative majority has, quote, consigned women to second-class citizenship. In overturning Roe, the Supreme Court has unleashed a health care crisis across America. Make no mistake, women's health and in some cases their lives are at risk. Today, the committee will examine the very real consequences of the court's unprecedented decision. We'll start with a video.
Roe versus Wade, upholding that Mississippi law, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization.
Could pregnancy loss land people in prison?
We already have seen examples of this. Pregnant people being criminalized for pregnancy outcomes, miscarriages, and or self-managed abortion.
Data collected from fertility apps and Google searches could be used to prosecute abortion.
Black women and other women of color are disproportionately criminalized.
Some of the bans do have civil and criminal penalties. They're difficult to interpret in terms of how they will be enforced.
We send patients with prescriptions for ibuprofen for pain control during medication abortion, and the pharmacies refusing to fill it.
Every kind of woman gets abortions. Women who are young, women who are old, women of all races, women who never thought that they would be seeking an abortion.
If I'm not mature enough to make a decision to have a child, I'm definitely not mature enough to have one.
I'm not financially stable. I'm already struggling with the 4 that I have.
What if I have another high-risk pregnancy that puts my own life at risk? I do want another baby, and now I'm scared to.
I no longer have those rights that we always looked at Western countries and Western women as having.
You see efforts to punish women and efforts to turn neighbors into bounty hunters of sort.
Because of a lack of access to reproductive health of choices, including contraception. This law is not just about abortion, it's about reproductive health.
Women are going to die as a result of this. There will be doctors who hesitate to act because they're worried about breaking the law and going to jail, and women will suffer and they will die.
Since the Dobbs decision, at least 10 states have banned abortion. More are expected to join them. The bans we've seen include insufficient and confusing exceptions for the life of the mother. Many do not even provide exceptions for rape or incest. When they do, they're unwieldy and inadequate. So what exactly do these efforts to ban abortion mean in the real world? They mean that a woman facing complications in pregnancy could die waiting in the hallway of a hospital because a doctor must weigh the risk of jail time against making the best decision for the health of the patient. And they mean that individuals and organizations who help someone travel to a state like my state of Illinois, where abortion is legal, may face legal liability. Consider a letter sent to the Sidley Austin law firm last week by a group of conservative Texas lawmakers, which threatened to, quote, impose additional civil and criminal sanctions on law firms that pay for abortions or abortion travel. Some Republican state lawmakers have even sought to punish women seeking abortions. For example, in Louisiana, Republican legislators sought to advance a bill in May that would have subjected women who terminate pregnancy to charges of criminal homicide. In his majority opinion, Justice Alito claims that by overturning Roe and Casey, the court was simply returning the power to decide how abortion may be regulated to the states. But Dobbs raises many questions with no answers, leaving healthcare providers and patients to navigate new restrictions that will likely and rightfully face further constitutional challenge. For example, in his concurring opinion, Justice Kavanaugh insists that a state cannot infringe on the, quote, constitutional right to interstate travel, close quote. Well, it seems some state Republican lawmakers didn't get the message. They are proposing bills that will turn their state borders into checkpoint Charlies for patients seeking abortions out of state. In a post-Roe America, it is not only abortion rights that are in peril. Other constitutional rights are under threat. And that's not my conclusion. It's Justice Clarence Thomas's conclusion. According to him, your constitutional right to privacy is a fiction. In his concurring opinion, Justice Thomas declares that a court should, quote, eliminate the constitutional rights to birth control, marriage equality, and consensual relationships between LGBTQ people, close quote. This radical, regressive vision for America is eroding the court's institutional integrity. This comes in the aftermath of Republican leader McConnell's blocking President Obama's right to fill the Supreme Court vacancy. President Donald Trump pledged to appoint nominees who would overturn Roe versus Wade. That was the box each one of them had to check with the Federalist Society before they could appear before this committee. Today, 3 in 4 Americans say they've lost faith in the Supreme Court, a record low. It's easy to see why. Families are living in fear that some of their most cherished rights are now on the conservative chopping block. So what are we going to do to protect these rights? What are we going to do to defend women who have already had their rights revoked? We know the Republican plan: win control of Congress and impose a federal ban on abortion. The Republican leader said as much. Democrats have a different plan: protect your rights by entering a federal statutory right to an abortion. In fact, that's exactly what the vast majority of Americans support: keeping access to abortion legal. A woman's choice to get an abortion is her choice alone. Politicians have no business sitting in the waiting room with the doctor. And with that, I'll turn to Ranking Member